second Zoom call between Ephraim and Rabbi Joseph Edery from the Chabad. I invite you also to visit Moshiach News Global website from Rabbi Edery. You'll find it on mnglobal.org, and you can see even here what we have prepared for you. These videos are the result of a cooperation between German and European Nation of Ephraim members, a Noahide alliance with the Jewish people to discover the light of Torah, HaShem's will, and the best way to prepare for the King Moshiach's arrival. So I invite you to go to his page to learn about what we're doing, what we're preparing, and I hope you will enjoy our second Zoom call. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome, Rabbi Edery, once again for our weekly discussion on the parasha. Last week we had Vayera, but there are also quite a number of issues happening right now in Israel with the elections and so on and so on. So how are you this morning? What's happening? What's happening in the land of promise?
Promised land. Yes. Thank you all for having me. I'm happy to be here once again. I'm happy. I'm content. We have to always remember that it's God's plan. It's God's world. We are just merely small cogs in a great machine, and we need to take it easy. And HaShem is at the wheel. And like we said earlier before the discussion, that because the Jewish people are disciplined in a way of morals and ethics, in a way of only fighting for what's right, we limit ourselves in the way we express ourselves in this world because we seek justice and we value life, even though the life of our quote unquote enemies or those who are, as they say, part of the matrix, So we value everybody and we appreciate them, even though we feel that we are not appreciated. And we truly yearn, work towards the day of justice and the day when the world will be a, built place where there's no trauma, there's no pain and suffering. And we took an example of some of the laws of like lo tevashel gdi b'chalev imo, which is not to cook the baby in the mother's milk of the goats, as an example that we learn from it in our day-to-day life. So I am going to stop eating. A Jew says to himself, I'm going to stop eating milk and meat together, so that I remember every single day not to be brutal and not to be merciless, and to slaughter a child in front of its mother and cook the child in its mother's milk, even though it's just an animal. But I'm gonna limit myself my entire life in order to remember not to be brutal. And the same thing is a circumcision. It takes off, the tip, which makes pleasures much more less enjoyable, because I want my pleasures to be in godly things, in spiritual things. I don't care very much for the worldly pleasure. This is the covenant that we make with HaShem. HaShem says to us, oh yeah, you can, some people just enjoy life, whatever. You want to be part of my team, you need to give something. And what you're giving is, and honestly, the Tzemach Tzedek said that if a non-Jew is not planning on becoming Jewish, there's no reason he should get circumcised, because honestly, he's taking away from his worldly pleasures. And, HaShem wants people to enjoy his great world, I guess. And unless you're part of the elite commando, you don't need to do that to yourself. So that's the Tzemach Tzedek, the 4 generations back of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's. Also a great Kabbalist, according to Kabbalah. So let's talk about this week's Parsha. We'll talk about a little bit about next week's Parsha, because I always feel like We're like in the middle of
Yeah,
the week, and
of course we're in the middle, of course, and of course, you know, when you again when you said, yeah, we shouldn't cook, you know, the kitten in the mother's milk. Of course, we have this awesome example directly with Abraham, who presents, of course, milk and cheese and meat, you know, at once, you know, and places them in front of the angels, the messengers.
but you will see that he served them the milk before the meat.
Yes, of course, and of course, you know, it's like he, you know, served the milk and then the meat, which is kosher.
But no, I'll explain you. I'll explain you because in Judaism we wait 6 hours
Yes,
after we eat meat till we can eat milk. But milk we wait only 1 hour. Some people wait a little less. So milk is a big why because it takes much less time to digest in the stomach in the body, and meat takes much more time because it's no fiber almost and so on. So the reason so imagine on Shavuot, for example, we eat milk during the holiday because right after the Jews got the Torah, they still weren't well versed in the laws of shechita, of how to slaughter the animal.
yeah,
So at the time they only ate milk. So to remember that on the Shavuot we eat milk during the meal, but we will eat, like, let's say some cheesecake or blintzes or whatever it is in
yeah,
the
it's very
beginning of the
nice.
meal.
Shavuot, a very nice,
Yeah.
very nice
And
time.
then we'll have, let's say, salad and fish in the middle of the meal. And by the time we're finished eating the salads and fish, we kind of try to drag it out with a Dvar Torah or whatever it is till an hour passes. And then we eat, if you still have any room, a kazait, a little bit of meat for the sake of the holiday. Because, you know, and also this is a very interesting thing because I find that in Judaism, like a lot of times on Shabbat, you know, we have fish and then we have salads and we have the challah and wine. And then by the time the meat comes around, I'm like stuffed to here. You know, I don't feel like eating. But specifically then, I feel like eating a kazait, which is just like
A small piece.
this much, a small piece of meat. That's when you're really doing it because of the mitzvah and not because of, you know, yourself.
Yeah,
That's when you're doing, you know, I'm eating meat now in honor of Shabbat because Hashem said so, even though I'm full to here, you know? So that's when you really can do the mitzvah without being an animal, you know? Anyway, so going back to the meat, so that when Avraham Avinu gave to the angels, he gave them the milk before, and then let's hope that, you know, he gave them some water, something to drink, and then so it's not that they ate it together. That's all I'm saying.
yeah. This is, of course, this is a very nice explanation. You know, which, you know, I honestly, you know, I'm, of course, you know, since my very first day in Israel, you know, the whole kashrut issue becomes an issue. So Leviticus 11 says everything about the clean and the unclean food. Now, the whole issue with cooking the kitten in the mother's milk, I have this, you know, I had this discussion quite some often. I think it's an animal protection law. It doesn't say anything about, you know, really cooking or eating, for example, a cheeseburger, you know. Because if you want to really apply this, we see that the, you know, do not cook the kitten. I think it's the lamb. This is in connection with the lamb, and Abraham put a little beef, no, not beef, yeah, beef, cow, a little cow, you know.
Gdi maybe in English could be a kitten, but yeah, it's a baby lamb. Yes, yeah. Gdi
Yeah.
is a lamb.
So
But I want to say also that when we speak about the laws of kashrus, yeah, in Judaism today, of course, like we spoke about, I think in one of our earlier shows, but I'll say it again just because it's important for our conversation now, that the oral tradition, people say, what's the Jews, you know, what's wrong with just learning the Torah, what's written, what's all this, you know, the rabbis telling the Jews what to do. People are very confused about this. So let's, you know, set the record straight. you read the Torah, even when you read it, you'll see, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. God spoke to Moses and he told him, tell the Jewish people so and so and so and so and so and so and so. Most of the Torah is recording the Jews listening to what Moses is telling them from Hashem. You can honestly say that the oral tradition comes even before the written tradition. By the time the Torah is written, half the story of the Exodus already happened. There's already, the Jews, when they left Egypt, they all got circumcised. Avraham Avinu got circumcised. The Torah wasn't written till when the Jews were in the desert, when Moses wrote the Torah. So the oral tradition even kind of comes before the written tradition. And of course, this is why the traditional Jews are the Jews, like, of course, many nations, and this is actually, it's so funny because when you learn the Torah, it's like the truth is just laid out in front of you like a carpet. Even when we study about Avraham Avinu 300 years ago, Rashi already wrote. I don't know 300 years ago, but about 300 years ago, Rashi already wrote that according to the Talmud and according to what's written already 2,000 years ago, Avraham Avinu will always, he's the Avram Goim. He is the great father of all nations. And the Talmud says that even people that are not from Avraham Avinu will want to claim that they're from him because of his character and because of the way he behaved. And the same thing kind of goes for, the children of Israel in general. Many people want to join the Nachala, the inheritance, or the tribe, And this is something that the Talmud says straight up. And the Talmud doesn't have an issue with it, because the Talmud actually says that this is a good thing because it shows that what the Jewish people are doing is a good thing. That's it, like.
Yeah,
but
this
now,
is with the tribes, this is okay. Honestly, I read the comment.
Well, I want to address the tribes also,
okay,
because this is actually one of the new issues that's coming up now with the right-wing, strong Israeli party that I think the Israeli politicians are kind of missing, because most of the right-wing parties, they're just built-in Jews, they're not, and good for them, they're not really paying attention to, let's say, people like your organization from the Nation of Ephraim and other groups that are trying to say, what about us? Even the Arabs in Israel identify very strongly with the Jewish people in a lot of ways. Even the Muslims, the typical Muslim, doesn't eat pork, believes in one God, has very strong family laws and respect for the family. Of course, in the Islamic world, you'll see, everybody knows honor killings is not exactly very common in the Jewish people, but it's very common in the Arab people. But the fact is that you might even say that the Muslims are even more religious than the Jewish people, because in Saudi Arabia, the laws are very, very strong. You cannot mess around or you'll go to jail for the rest of your life. If you think you want to...
or your head got chopped off. Or your head
yeah. You have a lot of American little kids, they want to come with a bunch of girls and do a music video on the beach. They will get arrested if they do that in Saudi Arabia, So they take modesty and all this stuff much more seriously than the state of Israel. The state of Israel is a joke. And I actually think that if you look at all the blessings that Hashem is giving to Saudi Arabia, people are thinking of going there every day. Moving the real estate market in Saudi Arabia right now is through the roof. Anybody that wants to, avoid taxes, there's no taxes in Saudi Arabia. They don't need your little money. They don't need to bother you all day. The government is rich enough. They don't need to harass the citizens or serve the New World Order just in order to oppress the citizens and in order to make money. They have their own money. They have their own thing. They don't need you. As long as you don't get in their way, they honestly don't want to bother you. Whereas in Israel and in all these broke states that are part of the US dollar, the only way they survive is by harassing the people that we spoke about. So let's talk about Oh, so the state. So in Israel right now, I've seen, even like if I was paying very close attention when the Arab guy in the news report was bringing a right-wing Jewish Orthodox Jew to the studio, and he says, "What about the people who want to convert? What about the non-Jews? How do you see them in Israel? What kind of identity can you give them?" And the religious guy just brushes him off and says, "We have enough problems with the yeshivas, with the shuls, with the mikvahs. We need to make sure that the budgets for all these things are in order." And then I don't know what you're talking about, basically. Like, I don't know, So, but I think it's very important because the Jewish people need to clarify to the B'nai Noach, the Muslims, our brothers, our cousins, whatever, throughout Israel, what our stance is. We need to have an official um, religious stance, a faith, a stance of faith towards these issues, in order to get rid of the confusion, in order to give people an identity, even if they're not part of the right-wing Ben Gvir, group.
Yeah, but I think so far I saw, here Abraham Feld, Rabbi Feld, he gave out from Tour. I think it was the end of either end of 2015 or 2016, a whole page advertising in the Jerusalem Post, En Israel bli Joseph, there is no Israel without Joseph. And so in this advertising, I really should take a look. I have it still somewhere here. It is reported from the Jerusalem Post that already, 2015 groups within the Knesset groups were formed and councils were formed to ask themselves, okay, what are we doing with these, the returning exiles, from the very beginning of the Declaration of Independence of Ben Gurion, the return of the exiles, meaning not the Jewish people. The Jewish people, yes, it's a homeland for the Jewish people, but they already expected that the lost tribes are coming back. And now we are, of course, we are coming in this huge, big issue, with naming, when we talked about short before, I said, I would like to slowly, move into direction where we have this, in quotation, Sola Scriptura. Meaning, you yourself just said, yeah, exactly. So at Mount Sinai, there were no Jewish people. At Mount Sinai, there were only the children of Israel. The Jewish people developed later. And it's like a huge, big issue. It's a huge.
But Ulf, I want to clarify one thing, because right now, especially with the Kanye West situation, which we actually started this series and we caught it on time, as they say. But we're having a lot of people that say the same thing, and I'm very confused, and I'll tell you why. Because this is a very brand new trend. As far as me as an Orthodox Jew, hearing about this is very, very very foreign. This whole thing of saying that the Jewish people is only the tribe of Judah and there's other tribes is a very nuanced.
I didn't say that. I did not say that. But at the
I know, but I want to address it because that's the perception on the street.
Okay.
I want to because I of course not everybody went to yeshiva or studied as much as me and you. So when people in the street hear, let me give you a good story, and then because the Jew, we'll talk about a story, and then we'll come back to this, and it's all connected. Okay. So Eliyahu Hanavi in Har HaKarmel was finally presented with a standoff against the Nevi'ei Habal, the false prophets, the prophets, the prophets of doom and gloom, the prophets of idol worship, the prophets of convenience, against Eliyahu Hanavi, which had to hide in a castle, and he had some ravens bringing him food. And anyway, so finally he makes it to this moment when he tells everybody, why are you jumping on the fence? Choose a side. If you are with God, join this side. If you are against God, go over there. And at that moment, everybody had to make a decision. Are you with the idol worship or are you with Eliyahu Hanavi? Who are you going to gamble with? And we're talking about, swords drawn. This was going to be a bet that was going to cost lives. And there were two cows, big, nice cows that they brought. And the mission was who could bring a fire from heaven down.
Exactly.
And the first cow that was going to go for the idol worship didn't want to go. He kind of dug his feet in the ground and he didn't want to go. Eliyahu Hanavi walked up to the cow and whispered, he says, I know they want to sacrifice you for the idols, but by you going up to the altar and being sacrificed, eventually there will be a Kiddush Hashem. There will be a great sanctifying of Hashem's name. So the cow goes, they slaughter the cow, they put him on the thing. Now, these idol worshippers obviously didn't have any godly gift, and Hashem wasn't going to send a fire down from heaven for their korban, right? So they had a guy, under the altar that was going to strike a match, and he was going to light it up, and somehow they're going to have some, some kind of aesthetics and whatever. They're going to be able to pull off an effect. But obviously Hashem is greater than anybody's plans, and he's sitting there in the sand underneath the ark, underneath the mizbeach, and a snake comes and kills him, bites him in the throat and kills him. So now he's dead underneath the ark, and the guys don't know that he's dead. Obviously, there's too many people around because they put him there the night before. So there's too many people around now in order to switch him out, or to do something. They don't know he's dead. So they start praying and they start slashing themselves on their body, which is something that the Jewish people are not allowed to do. We're not allowed to hurt our bodies because our bodies is our temple and so on. So they start slashing themselves and they start praying, and Eliyahu Hanavi is teasing them. He says, maybe your God doesn't hear you. Maybe you need to scream louder.
Maybe he's asleep. Maybe he's going to the bathroom.
Yeah. And they screaming and screaming till the afternoon, and nothing's happening. So Eliyahu Hanavi says, let's go. They bring water, barrels of water. Everybody sees, they taste it, water. They pour it onto the mizbeach of Eliyahu Hanavi. They pour all this water. They make a whole ditch around the mizbeach. They fill it up with water. And Eliyahu Hanavi goes to the side and he prays for a few minutes. And a fire comes down from heaven. Everybody sees, boom, eats up the korban and eats up all the water around as well. And then all the prophets of God just slice up the false prophets. And it was a moment in history, like when, I don't know. But I want to say something. The only reason Eliyahu Hanavi knew that these people are going to come was because he knew that they have the letzte combina, the last combina, the last way, the last trick. That he knew that they're going to have a guy under the thing. And he knew that they had confidence in what they were going to do. If not, they wouldn't come. And because of that, he knew that Hashem is going to make a miracle. In other words, so I want to come back to the tribes now. The tribes, I'm feeling, I wish and I pray that all the people of honestly, the lost tribes, people that they know in their families or whatever, that for the last thousands of years, they've been, Moranos in Spain, the prosecuted or in Ethiopia or whatever. And they've held, the Jewish spark, whatever you want to call it, the embers, the ashes of the Jewish people underneath throughout exile, and they're coming back. That's 100% fine. What I'm worried about, Ulf, is people that see this whole lost tribe situation. I'm not talking about people that are actually studying the Torah, like the Nation of Ephraim, and actually every day learning more and so on, and they're taking it as a journey. But I'm worried about the people that think it's a combina, to get in somehow. I don't know for what reason. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. But it's very important that those who want to join the children of Israel understand what they're getting themselves into. And
Yeah, but
imagine right now
this is the whole issue. I mean, so when you are from the children of Israel, well, then you're not getting into anything. So then it's basically what Hezekiel says, chapter 37, with the resurrection of the dead, that all Israel will come out of their graves, all Israel, and God will put his spirit into them so that they live. So, and then of course,
it's like a it's like a sleeper agent. When you have a Jew that's not religious, it's like a sleeper agent or a soldier that's in training, but he's not activated.
Yes.
It's all in there. You just need to turn it on. To compare that with Bilam, which is been riding his donkey more than any typical guy. I'm just So it's as I told you also, like we said in the beginning of this show, being a Jew is not just or being part of the Nilvei Israel, the alliance of the Jewish people, the advisors of the Sanhedrin, or the Bnei Noach, or the Ger Tzedek, the Noahide that needs to keep Shabbat when he's in Israel. So this kind of level of commitment to Hashem's mitzvahs is very taxing on a human being. Now, of course, there's a lot of great things about the Jewish people, but honestly, people think that. I saw a video of a Chabad guy. He's explaining the 7 laws of Noah to some guy on the street. And the guy is just like, he's talking to him and everything's fine. And the rabbi makes perfect sense. He's telling him, the 7 laws of Noah: do not kill, do not steal, respect the family life. And he goes through all 7 of them. And he tells him about Bnei Noach. And as the guy's talking in the video, you see he puts captions on the bottom. The rabbi's lying to me. They say that they try to distance people from converting. They don't really mean it. This, that, everything the guy says, he thinks there's something else going on. There's like a secret tachbulot, going on underneath. And, of course, there's this other guy. There's a few guys in America that are just driving me crazy. Like, there's a few videos there's weird videos. There's a guy that he's like, I'm Jewish, I'm half Jewish, and my daughter's bisexual. I don't know what he's talking about. Anyway, and then they start beating the shit out of him. And I'm trying to figure out, did they beat him up because he's Jewish, half Jewish? I don't know what that even means. Or because his daughter was bisexual. And anyway, weird stuff are going on in the world right now. And I think it's really an identity crisis. I've made a video about this. I made a video about this 4 years ago, I think, called Identity Crisis. So we really need to make like a tray for everybody,
Yeah, it's the whole issue with Israel and Judah. This is the whole issue. There are 2 separate entities in the Torah and the prophets: the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Now, the biggest issue were in this age, was when 1948 the Jewish people called their state Israel. It was very unexpected. People thought about, perhaps it will call it Judah, whatever. But when the Jewish people came back, because Israel is, according to the Torah, not Jewish. And now we are coming into a very, very whole, when we're talking about identity crisis, I wouldn't say that the Jews have an identity crisis. They know who they are. They know who they are, But now we have the issues. Okay, when we go now back to the Torah, and this is why I said, we need this. So sometimes really Sola Scriptura. So when we are talking about Abraham as the first Jew, this might be very honorable towards Abraham, but he was the first Hebrew. And I think it's very, very important that people understand this. You know, and the same thing is with, you know, with Jacob. So he was renamed into Israel. So this is why the children of Israel were the children of Israel. So the whole confusion about Ephraim and Judah and Israel, that comes only later when they are when the children of you know, all 12 tribes came to Shmuel and wanted to have a king. When they didn't want to listen anymore to HaShem as their king, they wanted to have a visible king. And now the whole thing starts that you have a division. And I'm sorry to say this, you know, it's because of Solomon, you know, because he went into idol worship with his women. You know, one of his 1,000 women, okay, made a little mistake. What? So anyhow, so he was drawn away only because of David. Only because of David, he didn't lose the kingdom during his lifetime. Only when he died, he lost the kingdom. And since then, we have the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. Now, if we, you know, when I read through the Bible at the first time, I mean, this was the first thing which it immediately, I mean, sticks out. It immediately sticks out. And what, for me, the biggest issue has been over the last years is when people say, yes, it's like, yeah, it's house of Israel, it's house of Judah, but there is no difference, that they're all Jews. And that's not true.
Oh, wait, 1 minute. Okay. When they say they're all Jews, what they mean is that if we go through the story like you just did.
I know what they mean. I know what they mean. You know, so, we just had Rabbi Feld. We should, you know, make later on a link to the video. He just last week, you know, made a video specifically on this, you know, explaining the whole situation, how this is, you know, it's of course, you know, by your name, your brothers will praise you. It comes, of course, from Genesis, you know, that.
So, Ulf, let me ask you a question. Today, okay, in my mind, yeah, the evolution of the Jewish people starts, first of all, with Avraham Avinu, and it starts with his kids. Of course, we know that Ishmael is moved to the side, Esau goes to the side, Yaakov stays in the middle, the 12 tribes, they almost get thrown out, but Yosef doesn't tell his father that they sold him, so they keep going. And then you have the children of Israel, all the tribes unified. Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar, under Mount Sinai, they received the Torah. Eventually, so imagine in your mind, you see the 12 tribes of Israel, right? The tribe of Judah in the front, the lion. You have the tribe of Gad, which is the military. You have the tribe of Dan, which is the spies, the Nachash, the snake. You have the tribe of Yosef, which is the bull. Each one parked around the Mishkan in the desert. With a special mission. Naphtali is the deer. They're the quick, the scouts, the cavalry. And you have each tribe has a special, unique mission. Yeah. And then you have, of course, in the middle of the camp, you have the Kohanim, the Kohanites, the Kaganites, you know, and you have the Levites surrounding the Mishkan, the ark, and then and so on and so forth. Now, at this time in the desert, before they enter the land, you have the 12 tribes, respectively. When I say 12 tribes, I mean also Menashe, Ephraim, the two sons of Israel.
Yeah, basically, we have 13 tribes. Basically, after Joseph became Ephraim Manasseh, we have basically 13 tribes, whereas Levi, you know, has to serve the temple and the Mishkan, and it's not in the military order. So this is why he's not around in the camp, you know, because
and then it says Lo hayu yamim tovim liYisrael ki 15 b'av. This is the day that my daughter was born. I don't want to compete with you with the dates and everything, but my daughter was born on 15 b'av, which is the day that anyone who didn't find a match yet, they would go, and the daughters that weren't married yet would dance, and all the Jews the men would stand around, and if they saw someone that was they found favor, they would call them later and maybe try to book a shidduch or something. But yeah. So this was when did this start? This started when Moshe Rabbeinu gave permission for the tribes to intermarry. But again, it still didn't matter very much because you would still go according to the man. So the man would get married to a girl from a different tribe, but he would get the inheritance. And then you have the story of the daughters of Tzlafchad, which are they didn't have any man. They were too young, I guess. They didn't get married yet, and their father died, and there was no brother to inherit the land. So they came to Moses. Moses didn't know what to do. He had to ask God. God told him, give them a portion of their father, give them their father's land, and so on. So this was a unique case because of the new law of the tribes intermarrying. Eventually, Yoshua ben Nun, when he goes into Israel, the Jewish people come in as one. They don't come in separate tribes. Of course, they have separate tribes. We have a few tribes that, stay back. Their wives and kids stay behind.
We have also Erev Rav. We have also, of course, the mixed multitude. We have the Erev Rav next to which is currently a big issue and big topic.
Right. Of course, the Erev Rav kind of, flattened the tire within the Jewish people. Yeah. When with the sin of the golden calf, they're the ones who really push for the whole thing. They're the ones who lose faith the quickest, and they're the ones who bring the Jews to sin. Many Jews didn't participate, but because they didn't stop them, they were considered sinners. So it was pretty bad. So if maybe you had 5,000, 6,000 guys actually dancing around, and the rest of the hundreds of thousands of Jews just sitting around in their tents, just confused or whatever, that Moshe didn't come back. And out of the 5,000, 6,000 guys that were dancing, maybe most of them were probably Erev Rav, fresh Egyptians that kind of figured that politically it would be best to join the Jewish people and leave Egypt.
Do you really think that, even after Aaron did this for them? Aaron did the golden calf. Of course, we can, later on switch back.
Aaron, 100%. Aaron is a Kohen, and a Kohen without Levi support is worthless. So Moshe Rabbeinu was the Levi, and he goes up to the mountain. And when the Kohen is left with Yisrael, he's nothing. He's really nothing. It's like the king without the security. He's really nothing. So the Kohen is a very high level, but the Kohen eventually also, because they were around in the temple, they had access to all the gifts from the Jewish people. They really were like the elite, corrupt elite of the Jewish people eventually, unfortunately. Even Aaron Kohen's kids were drunk and they went into the Holy of Holies. So you can imagine, they were really the spoiled brats of the Jewish people. But they had a very special place, and they were very, very fiery, very vicious. So when the time came, they were able to truly give good control and leadership. They were very good at that, but they were prone to corruption. And the Shevet Levi was the one who kept them in check, the Levites. And when Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to the mountain, it falls apart right away. So that's the sad thing about the Kohanim. It's like you have a special artillery, but it's vulnerable to infantry. It needs to always be protected, Yeah. So this is really what it is. It's like a human body. It says when they stood in front of Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged ahar, it says it in language of one. It doesn't say Vayachanu. Vayachanu means they were in front of the mountain. It says Vayichan. He stood in front of the mountain. Israel stood in front of the mountain. Ki ish echad belev echad, like one man with one heart. And this was a rare moment for the Jewish people. Okay, so let's move on. The Jewish people come into Israel. Sorry, Ulf, that I'm doing this.
This is a whole issue. The Jewish people, yes, there were also Jewish people, but there were the children.
Okay.
And you see, Yossi, I don't want to straight, but this, I think it's super duper important that we get over this, because it's like we will have always confused. We will have always.
Okay, so let me clarify. When I say the Jewish people, I'm referring to, like we said in our earlier class. We said in our earlier class that the nickname Jew for the Jewish people we find in Megillat Esther, in the book of Esther, when Mordechai from the tribe
Yes.
of Benjamin.
There is in Second King Yehudi, of course, it's an expression, and of
it's an
course,
expression.
You know,
so when I say
to belittle, very clear. I do not want to belittle anybody or anything, you know, when you know, and I think it's a you know, it's a very regular normal thing when the Jewish people says, yes, these are all our guys and they are all the Jewish people, you know. I'm not you know, but for the matter of better understanding, you know, HaShem made everything totally super specific. It's not like, okay, just take, no. I mean, when you take a look at the description of the Mishkan, how it's connected, how many rings you have to make, it's always perfect. Every measurement is perfect. And there is always...
my question to you is, the real underlying question to you is, do you understand that, of course, okay, so what I'm trying to say is like this. So first of all, we need to understand the story of the Jewish people, the children of Israel, and the children of Abraham, if you really want to go there, you know, because there's a few developments. In the beginning, it's just a family thing. We know that Avraham Avinu, he tells his kids, don't marry from the daughters of Canaan. Canaan is the grandson of Ham. Ham is the one who cut Noah's, you know, system off, and then Noah cursed him to be a slave to his brothers. So so that's the Negro community.
Yeah,
according to the Bible.
Yeah, it's according to the Bible. But you know, Ham, he saw something Canaan did. So Canaan was cursed, not Ham.
Ham was cursed, but Canaan was born black. In other words, Ham didn't turn black in the middle of his life. His kids
it says specifically that Noah, when he woke up, he realized what his youngest son did, and this was Canaan. It was not Ham. But we can talk, you know, but I do get this, but this is the...
No, Ham, I don't even know if Canaan was born at the time. I'm not even sure if Canaan was even born at the time. The whole story is between Shem, Ham, and Yafet. They were the three kids of Noah. When Ham Noah is drunk, and Ham does what he does, and then he comes and he tells Shem and Yafet what he did. So Shem and Yafet, you know, they take a blanket and they turn around and they cover their father. So according to that, I would have to assume, I have to double check, but if I'm not mistaken, Ham is the one who does the deed. Noah curses Ham, your kids will be slaves, and then Canaan is born, and he is black, you know. Now, Ham, even the word Ham also means like hot, dark. So, yeah, hot or dark. So it's possible that he was also a little dark. I'm not sure. But definitely Canaan was, you know, the full deal, the real deal. Like he was the epitome of the curse of Noah. Now, and we see it till today that's, you know, the curse continues. Whatever. Now, okay, so let's go. Okay, so the Yefet is like, he's not here and he's not there. He's the child. He has no special. He's not the father of the Jewish people. The father of the Jewish people is Shem, right? And eventually his grandson Ever, and eventually Avraham Avinu. And then Yefet is like, he respected Noah. He helped Shem put the cover over, but you don't hear much about him. If I would have to guess, maybe the Germans are from him. I don't know. But like, not here, not there, kind of, yeah, sure, I'll help you. Yeah, sure. Like, I don't know, kind of open for suggestions, kind of. That's what it seems like. Now, Edom, Rome, like we said, that's from Esau. Italy, Rome, that's, America a little bit. That's Esau. That's Edom. So if we look at the Torah, we can find where everybody is. It's not a big deal.
No, it's absolute. I absolutely agree.
You literally just go in and, I mean, for some people.
And this is the whole issue that, we can identify today. I mean, still we have Babylonia, with the Iran, the whole issue with the king of Persia, what was still going on. Okay. So we have the Syrians. Now the Syrians, of course, they went into, Ephraim and...
There we are.
Yeah, now Ephraim, of course, was taken out from Syria. So are you still back?
Yeah. You see me?
No. Yeah. Yes, now I see you. No, now I totally was a bit disturbed.
Ephraim, you said something about Ephraim?
Yeah, Ephraim was taken out from the Syrians. So it's so we have still all the old enemies of, or let's say, nations Israel was involved in. Assyria, Babylon, then we have, of course, the Greece, the Greek philosophies and so on, we're still under. So you can identify them, every enemy of Israel, you can identify them currently in the real world.
I also want to point out, when the Jewish people came to Israel,
would you agree to this? I mean, we know where Edom is, we know where Syria is. So now the biggest issue is not the threat from outside. It's the issues from inside, what is permanently a constant struggle in the family. Cain and Abel, Shem, Ham and Japhet, Isaac and Ishmael, Esau and Yaakov. So we have the complete story, and in Genesis, it's all about family. It's all about family and the descendants from him. Now, and this is why I'm standing so much. So when your father was a Jew, or was Judah, well, then you are subsequently always a Jew. So when your father is from Reuben, well, then you are also a son of Reuben. When your father was Joseph, this will never, ever change, because it's a physical issue of the seed, the serah. The serah, which going out from generation to generation to generation. So, but in between, of course, we see these major events, of course, in the Torah. The flood, of course, where we got our Noahites from. Then, of course, the revelation from Mount Sinai, huge event. But then, of course, going with Joshua, into the land, and we should really say, yes, it was Ephraim through all, Yehoshua ben Nun is from Ephraim. And one of the issues is, his Greek name would be Jesus.
All right, here we go.
This is, please. It is Joshua. Joshua, you read this. This is how it's translated in Greek. You can do this. So now we have, the going into the land, the creation of the kingdom, of the 12th tribe kingdom with 3,000 years from David. So, and then we have the split of the kingdom. So then Ephraim is taken away. Then Judah is taken to Babylon. And from there, you returned 1967. So when we read in Jeremiah, Jeremiah 29:10, they say, okay, only when the 70 years for Babylon will be fulfilled, then I will bring you back to this place and I fulfill all the good words and promises to you. Now, from the time of the destruction of the temple, even when the second temple, when Ezra and Nehemiah came back, only a minority of those who were captive in Babylon, only 7,000, only 10 or 20% came back. The rest stayed in Babylon where later on, of course, the Babylonian Talmud came up, the largest community was, so while Europe was all the Roman Empire, so the Jews were able to thrive in Babylon. And from there, they only returned 1948 after the Independent War, and then back to the city 1967 after 2,600 years. Now, during this time, where did the tribes?
So, wait a minute. So, I tell you what, the tribes. It's okay. So first of all, there's something called the Sefer Hayichus, Sefer Yuchasin. Most Jews, especially in the time of Egypt, when the Jews came into Egypt, there were 70 people, the Shivim Nefesh, and there's a whole Rashi goes into
when you mean
thing.
When the children of Israel came to Joseph, who was king in Egypt.
Yes.
He was the boss man.
Yes.
He was the boss man. And if I am not mistaken, I think, that Judah and all the others bowed down to Joseph and accepted him as leader of the family.
Kind of, yes. In a way, yes.
Kind of. They bow down and says, "We are your servants." It's an issue. And then Joseph said, "No. But this is the whole issue, with the. And I heard this now all the time. I think it's super duper important. It's not the Jewish people went down to Egypt. The sons of Jacob, the children of Jacob went down.
100%, Ulf. 100%. But Ulf, let me give you an example. Let's say the name Germ.
Yeah. Continue. Sorry, I'm here. I'm just flipping off the light. Okay.
So if we talk about the children of Israel, I'll wait for you. I'll call this. There we go. So if we talk about the children of Israel, if we talk about the reason why we call it the Jewish people is a shem chiba, is like a name of endearance. It's like imagine you're in your house and you're sitting with your kids and you call one of them my pupchin or something, right? And you call your wife I don't know, Geshenige Frau, I don't know what they call them, right? You give them a name of chiba, of endearment, and then you have one of your perfectionist German friends sitting behind you, and he says, actually, your daughter's name is, flips open the passport and starts reading what it says in the passport. And then you're like, I know what my daughter's name is. Don't come here and start gender teaching me, he, him, she, her,
them.
But they, them, binary, BS. I know what my daughter's name is. I'm calling her Pupchin or Sweetie Pie or, something like that, Hamuda, because it's an endearing name. Or imagine you call her Cutie and he's like, actually, if you ask me, she's not that cute. She looks like the front bumper of So you can tell, it's not. So it's not about if your daughter is to you she's cute. You're her father, or you're the one endearing them. So in my opinion, really, of course, if I was talking now to a bunch of archaeologists, I would definitely tell them that that the Jewish people are the children of Israel, not to be confused with, anyway. But now that I'm talking to you, or today, the modern way of speaking is the Jewish people, and like as I told you, it's an endearing name, and I don't mind not to use it in our classes technically. But I think that it's so common. 90% of the world understands that the Jewish people are the children of Israel, and that's what I'm saying. There's kind of like someone shoving a wedge in there and trying to like knock in.
I mean, Joseph, you should really, from our side, there is not a bad, but I think really because we are today in this huge big time of confusion, and it's about definitions. It's about definitions, you know. And in the, I mean, you know, when we are talking about the gender, okay, so the definition of the who is what, you know, I mean, it's super duper important. You know, in science, it's impossible, you know, to come to a complete right understanding when your words are mixed up and people are using words they do not understand. Okay, so now we of course hope to attract, you know, people who are currently, you know, outside, you know, they outside Israel, you know, who are reading the Bible and going back, and to find a way how to serve Hashem based on the Torah and make peace with the Jewish people, according to Jeremiah 31. So, and for that, I think it's super duper important that we, you know, that we stick with the biblical terms, with the biblical terms.
So then, Ulf, if so, then how do you just casually? I mean, so then, what is the basis of calling the nation of Ephraim the nation of Ephraim if genealogy-wise, I mean, it's you know, has to be worked on. Like you told, okay, so
yes,
look like
it's
this.
absolutely, and I tell you also, because Ephraim, of course, you know, yesterday,
Now, Ulf, I'm not, God forbid, I'm not trying to give offense, but I'm asking you an honest question.
I'm giving you an absolutely, totally biblical answer. So number one, Genesis 48, Ephraim is Israel. Genesis 49:10. I'm saying that the son of Joseph is the Shiloh. He is the Shiloh. Okay, and when you go in Ezekiel 37, it says that the stick of Joseph is in the hands of Ephraim, which means he holds the birthright. And it's specifically in Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 5, and it says, yes, although Reuben was the firstborn, he was not measured according to the genealogy. The sons of Joseph, they are the birthright. And it's very, very super specifically. So, you know, when we started Ephraim, you know, it's not yesterday, it's 2005. Because in Ezekiel 37, you see, okay, there is Judah and all the Israelites maintaining with him. And then there is Joseph and the stick of Joseph in the hand of Ephraim, and all his companions, all the other Israelites.
So, let me, I want to put some context into all the things you mentioned. So, first of all, during the blessing that Yaakov Avinu is giving Menashe and Ephraim, so he's blessing them, and he's blessing Menashe and Ephraim, and Yosef is there, and Yosef is the father, and he wants that the right hand of Yaakov should be on Menashe's head, because Menashe is the firstborn, and Ephraim on the left hand. But Yaakov Avinu switches his hands like this. Okay, he switches his hands, and he tells Yosef, "Don't worry, Menashe is also going to be great, a great nation, but I want to bless Ephraim because there's something special about him."
Yes,
and that I see
Melo Haguim. He will be the fullness of the Gentiles.
Okay, that according to what I've studied in yeshiva, I'll tell you what we studied about why Ephraim got the special bracha. Okay, because Mordechai. Remember, we said Mordechai, the Jew who did not bow down to Haman in the story of Esther, and the Jew who
he was from Benjamin. Mordechai was from
right?
Benjamin.
Yes. So Mordechai, even though he was from okay, so he's from Benjamin, but he has, I think, some kind of connection to Ephraim, or his mom. I'm not sure exactly, but there was a certain amount of, maybe I'm confusing between Mordechai, but there were certain great leaders that came from Ephraim, and very, 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 very critical and important leadership and moments in Jewish history, that the leaders from Ephraim outshine the leaders of Menashe. And Yaakov Avinu, being a prophet, saw that. And that's why he wanted to give an extra blessing to Ephraim. Now, from what I studied, wait a minute. From what I studied, Ulf, I'm just going to say, from what I studied, I do not recall that the birthright or the firstborn rights of Menashe went to Ephraim. I just don't recall it. Maybe it's something I missed. And
Yeah,
I also want to
because
say,
exactly this is it's adoption process because you know so
wait,
why
1 minute. Also,
yeah
another thing is that Reuven's firstborn rights, I also don't think that I saw were ever taken away. The only one in the Torah that we know for sure there was a fight about the firstborn and the birthright was Esau, when there was a transaction and he sold his birthright and then later regretted it and wanted a refund, but I don't know if Yaakov gave him one. But
no no refunds.
other than no refund. So other than that, I don't see clearly that there was a and again, you have to also read from the language of Yaakov. Let me say it like this: you have to also remember that the firstborn goes by the father. Yaakov Avinu had many wives, so Yosef was technically a firstborn from Rachel, and Reuven was a firstborn from Leah.
Yes.
But Reuven was born first, and that's why he's the firstborn. Now, Menashe and Ephraim are Yosef's children. They're not Yaakov's children. And as children of Yosef, Menashe is the firstborn. So Menashe has firstborn rights, even though Ephraim gets a bigger blessing. Reuven has firstborn rights, even though Yosef is also a firstborn, but only from his mother, so it doesn't matter. So you have a little bit of a mix of things, but there was always a consistency in everything. Now, Ulf, today, as I wrote in the article on MN Global, and this is the most I can do, is that the nation of Ephraim, in my mind, is an amazing thing because the organization or the group symbolizes a group of people that clearly are interested in studying Torah in a realistic way, unlike, for example, Kanye West, which has an album that says, he says, I'm Jew, but on the other hand, he still believes in Jesus. He still worships on Sunday. He's still eating bacon. He's not trying even remotely to learn or study with a rabbi. He's involved in politics and he's whatever. He's involved in Hollywood, like we said, a very, very bad place for spiritual growth. So he's completely lost, completely. When we're talking about identity, for the people that are identifying, in my opinion, as the nation of Ephraim, they're studying this. They can identify as Bnei Noach, Noahite, and many of them want to move to Israel so they can begin to study the laws of a Ger Toshav, of a citizen Ger in Eretz Israel, in Israel. So those are halachic Jewish laws that apply to them, and they have the right, the Jewish right, to study the laws that are connected to them, whether it's the Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach and or the laws of a Ger Toshav in Israel. So you have the biblical right, the law, the commandment to study these parts of the Torah. And eventually, if those parts of the Torah necessitate you going even further, then you have that right as well, to study to try to serve Hashem in that capacity. So as far as that's concerned, of course. And as far as Ephraim, like we spoke about, which is the second child of Yosef, which is when he already felt comfortable in Egypt, and he said, I'm going to be successful in Egypt. Menashe was Nishani Elokim. God left me in a foreign land. He was upset still about the trauma, what happened to him. Ephraim was when he's already being successful. Paro is listening to him, and things are turning out for the best. He has a position where he can help his father and his mother and his brothers and sisters and his family. So Ephraim is the moment of flourishing in Egypt, where he's able to prepare the yeshiva. Yehuda goes ahead of of the rest of the tribes to open a yeshiva in Goshen. And Yosef, of course, helps with all of that. And Yosef, of course, uses his connections to move Yaakov to bury him outside of Israel and so on. So this is a moment when Yosef, or the Jewish people, or the children of Israel are feeling, Ephraim symbolizes a moment when the children of Israel are feeling very comfortable in Egypt, in their service of HaShem. Of course, when Yosef passes away, there's a moment of darkness, and the Jewish people end up in slavery because they get too comfortable in Egypt, you know, and it's pretty bad until Moshe Rabbeinu comes and saves them. But the moment that Ephraim is in the business, it's a moment of spiritual and physical abundance for the Jewish people, or the children of Israel, in the land of Egypt. In Egypt, which is, again, like we said, the father of all the impurities of the world.
Where everybody is going back to Sinai. So now, I really wonder why nobody ever got the most obvious. Why did Jacob bless Joseph? Because it was his most favorite son, and all the other guys sold him. So this is why Genesis 49 is not a blessing, it is a prophecy. And it says directly in the first verse in Genesis 49. Whereas Genesis 48 is a continuation. So we have Abraham, Avraham Avinu, he gave everything he had to Isaac, you know. So why are we, okay, it's 25:5, you know, Genesis 25:5, and I said, okay, you know, it's at some point, you know, with the birth dates and stuff like this, you know. So anyway, so this is Genesis 25. So then Isaac gives over his firstborn blessing to Yaakov. And the first thing he does, he runs out and meets Rachel and, you know, have the dream and so on and so on and so on. And now all his sons. So finally, Rachel has a boy, finally, you know, the last one. So he puts him in a nettle dress. And now this boy is sold. Can you imagine what this would be for you? First of all, you think for 17 years that your son is dead. You think it's dead. And then it comes out, he was not dead. He was sold by your other children.
But Ulf, do you have evidence to prove that Yaakov Avinu ever found out? Because I don't think he found out.
Of course he found out.
Doesn't say it in the Bible that he found out.
Yeah, when they heard that his son Joseph is alive.
He heard that he's alive.
Yeah, he heard that he's alive, of course. Okay, listen, you know, when you...
I told you that the reason why Menashe and Ephraim hung out so much with Yaakov was because Yosef wasn't interested in sitting next to his father, because he knew that he's going to ask him, by the way, where were you for the last 20 years? And then he's going to have to answer him, oh, my brother sold me. And then Yaakov Avinu is going to throw his brothers out. So he avoided meeting his father when he was in Egypt. Very, very short. Hey, hi, goodbye from far. But he avoided, and he sent his children instead the whole day to sit with Yaakov, because he was trying to avoid this question, because he would never lie to his father and he would never hesitate to answer. But he knew that the second his father asked him this question, it's the end of his brother. And he was avoiding. This is why I point this out. Yeah, I know it would seem obvious that he would figure this out. And maybe somebody else told him, but Yosef never told him. And it was never officially something that Yaakov Avinu knew. I can even tell you more than this.
I mean, it's nearly impossible.
Wait a minute.
Yossi, seriously, you last time, you had the story from Abraham, 3 years in a cave and so on, because everybody says, now all these are outer Torah accounts. They are extra biblical accounts. They are either oral traditions and so on, but they are not written in the Torah. They're not written in
Yes, but I want to say one more thing.
Assume the very, very obvious. We have to, Yosef, seriously, you are a father now. You have now 4 kids. All right? So hopefully you also one day a whole football
Oh,
team.
it's very simple. It's very simple. The only ones who knew what happened to Yosef was Yosef and his brothers. Those
Yes.
are the only ones. It wasn't like today that everybody has a cell phone. Yeah? Nobody was filming what happened. Nobody knew what happened to Yosef besides the brothers
Yeah.
themselves. Even the Muslims that bought him probably didn't know who he was. Now, they swore between themselves, and they brought HaShem into their svua, into their promise, to never ever reveal what happened. What happened in the pit stays in the pit. They made a swear. They swore. That's why Reuven, all his life, he was crying that he didn't come on time to stop what happened, but he never told Yaakov anything. And Yosef, now the only one who knew besides them was Yitzchak, because he had Ruach HaKodesh. And he wasn't part of the promise. But when he knew from divine inspiration that that's what happened, and he figured that HaShem would tell Yaakov, because Yaakov also had Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration. But because God was part of the swearing, the brothers brought God into the swearing. God didn't reveal it, and then Yitzchak said, "Well, if God didn't tell Yaakov, then why should I tell Yaakov? Maybe there's a good reason." He didn't know that Yaakov was that God was sworn in. So what I'm telling you now is that this was a very, of course, Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, eventually this was written down in the Torah. But I'm interested to find if there's anyone who can prove that Yaakov Avinu ever knew this, even to his last day. That's all. I'm just saying.
Okay, no, it's okay that it was told to him. It's not specifically says, but we read. I just want to read here First Chronicles 5. The sons of Reuben. Okay, it's a nearly infallible version. NIV, nearly infallible version. So the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, he was the firstborn. But when he defiled his father's marriage bed, his rights as firstborn were given to the sons of Joseph, son of Israel. So he could not be listed in the genealogy record in accordance with his birthright. And though Judah was the strongest of his brothers, and a ruler came from him, King David, the rights of the firstborn belonged to Joseph. So,
fair enough. That is true. That is true.
Yeah. So now, when we are going now to Jeremiah 31:9. They will come with weeping, they will pray as I bring them back. I will lead them beside streams of water on a level path where they will not stumble, because I am Israel's father and Ephraim is my firstborn son. So when we are talking about the firstborn son of God, where the Christian says, yeah, it's all Jesus. No, it's Israel and it's Ephraim. And now we have to seriously now. This is all the whole issue now. So okay, what's now with the firstborn? What's now with the firstborn? Yeah. So the
firstborn in Yaakov Avinu's case, it's rights to the service in the temple.
No, we are talking about the earth. I mean, we have Adam was put. Okay, we get this beautiful planet, Earth. All right. So then God puts Adam on top of it and says, okay, now you take care of it. So as regularly you would say, okay, you are now the head of the household, and at the time you would die, you would pass on your inheritance to your firstborn son. Or, I mean, this is with the kings, it's still up to this day, that you hand over your inheritance over to your children. So this is why you have like this bad issue that Cain, the firstborn, when he was killing Abel, this was not his job. It was it was his job to take care of his brother. and not selling him, not killing him, not selling him, not throwing him into the pit, not selling him to the slave. No, that's not the job of the firstborn. The firstborn should take care of the inheritance, what he received from his father. Now, so the Ben Adam, each Ben Adam, every one of us, and there are tons of Ben Adam, the big Ben Adam. Okay, what's with the Son of Man? The Ben Adam who comes with the cloud of heavens. Okay, so he is definitely for 100% sure a descendant of Adam. Now, when we take a look at the genealogy, this is why it's so, you have the 10 after Cain killed Abel. So then we had you had Seth, Seth, and then we had 10 generations with Noah. And then there was a flood. And then we had, 10 generations more. You had Abraham. And now Abraham is now the 10th firstborn. Sorry that I hope I'm not too...
No, go. Keep
it
going.
was a long night yesterday, I know. So we have now...
Yeah, it's all good.
So every time, Adam, would give the first, his inheritance always, to Bob, and then we have Noah. He receives everything, the whole world, and his sons. And then we have Abraham. So now Abraham inherits the world. So he is the descendants of Adam, the 20, and he should take care of the world. And now you have this blessing that you inherit the world, the whole world. You're the boss of the world. So now you just pass on to Itzik, and then to Yaakov, and then to Ephraim. This is the whole issue. It's the whole world. It's the whole world. So this is why it's called the Shiloh, the guy who he's the owner of everything.
So thank you for that clarification. Reuven, it's true. Let's talk about why Reuven lost his firstborn, because like it says, Bechor Shoite, the stupid firstborn. Because the firstborn sometimes is he's kind of the practice piece for the parents. They never had a kid before, so the firstborn is almost like the experiment for the rest of the kids. And he thinks independently, and he has to figure everything out by himself because he has no other siblings to look up to. So he's discovering the world on his own the whole time. And he's not just following the sheep, as they say. And honestly, when the Jewish people left Egypt, the firstborns were very, very, very important. And they were going to be given the rights to be the Kohanim in the temple. However, because they sinned in the golden calf and they failed to coordinate stopping the golden calf from happening, they lost that position. So till then, the firstborn in Judaism was a very, very significant thing. And at that point, they kind of lost their thing. Now, what happened to Reuven was there was a few, romantic stories going back and forth between Rachel and Leah. Reuven went out to get some flowers, and he came back
with the story with the pomegranate, so with the love.
I'm not familiar, but I'll take your word for it.
I know when Leah comes and says, "Hey, here my son brought Reuven. He brought this some fruit."
Dudaim. No. Dudaim is roses.
Ah, Dudaim is roses. Okay.
Yeah. So he brought Dudaim, which is roses, and then Rachel wanted them very much, so I think she bought them off of. Anyway, there was a few back and forth, and then there was a point when Reuven took his. Okay, what was happening was there was 4 tents. Each mother had her own tent, and Yaakov Avinu had his bed, and they kept moving it around from tent to tent according to the schedule. They had a schedule, I think 1 week here, 1 week there. So Reuven at a certain point was trying to get points for his mother, and he slept on a certain bed in order for Yaakov not to have a choice and be with his mother or something like that. And Yaakov Avinu took that as a very big offense and, said, get out of my way. But like that's when he lost his, chen, his grace in Yaakov a little bit. Also, Reuven was crying his whole life because he felt responsible for what happened to Yosef. He was depressed his whole life about it, kept on crying. And to a point where they told him, stop it already, just get over yourself, live your life. There's nothing you can do about it. Get some therapy.
Yes.
But he was just like just sulking, all in. So Reuven was very like that, kind of quiet, kind of this, kind of that. He tried his best. There were certain things that you saw that he got wrong a little bit, like when Yosef was in Egypt and he told the brothers, you have to bring me Binyamin. So they were trying, and Yaakov didn't want to give Binyamin. So they were trying to convince Yaakov to bring Binyamin. So Reuven, the firstborn, he said, if I don't come back with Binyamin, you can kill my two sons. So Yaakov told him, what are you, stupid? Why would I want to kill your kids? Your kids are my kids. And then, like, what good would that do to me? What kind of guarantee is that? And then Yehuda said, I'll bring him back, and if not, I will lose both worlds, this world and the world to come. And Yaakov said, okay. So you see that Reuven was trying his best, sometimes very misunderstood, but he also wanted to stop the selling of Yosef. He told them they wanted to kill him, and he said, no, don't kill him, put him in the pit till we decide what to do. And he couldn't even stand next to his brothers because he was so disgusted by what their jealousy and the conclusion. So he kind of left, and he said, at night I'm going to come back and take him out. But by the time he came back, they already sold him to the caravan that passed by. And when he realized what they did, he screamed at Yehuda and he said, you are such an idiot. Now, what are you going to tell dad? And then they made the promise. Yeah. But still, Reuven always felt guilty for what happened. Anyway, and of course, during the 20 years or so that Yosef was in Egypt, Yehuda was taken down from his glory as the leader of the tribes. All the brothers looked at him and said, you made a big mistake that you sold him. Even though Reuven and Shimon wanted to kill him. They're always the excited ones, But so Yehuda sold him instead of Reuven and Shimon killing him. Shimon and Levi killing him. And Reuven wanted to save him. So anyway, a lot going on. Yeah.
So we see that there is all the time the struggles with the firstborns. We see this all the time. So now the big issue is, that Joseph, well, he didn't stretch out for anything. He knew he was the little one, the littlest amongst the brothers, and then of course when he ended up in prison and was put on top of the pyramid, if you like to so to say, well, he of course knew it was just by the grace of HaShem. I mean, if HaShem wouldn't have orchestrated this, okay, then it wouldn't even be a time of salvation, for the Jewish people back then, so because they were starving. Now, of course, today we had now 4,000 years of history, at least 3,334 years since the giving of the Torah from Mount Sinai, that we are able to think about this, to ponder about this, and of course, there are all these concepts and stories developed around the whole issue, and it's of course very spiritual. But if you are a father, I am a father. I met, what I went already through, where I can totally put myself into the position of Yaakov, where he sees, okay, man, Reuven is not doing so super duper. Then we have like Shimon and Levi, they kill off a genocidal, like a whole village. There's stuff going on. You know, and when he came down to Egypt at 830, I mean, think about this. My grandmother was 103 when she passed. You know, and 100 over to get to become over 100 today is already like mind-boggling. All right, so Avraham got his first, you know, the Itzik with 100, and Yaakov with 130 to Egypt, down to Egypt with 130. You know, so I mean, you know, this is perhaps it's a bit stretched. You know, I don't know if it's in any connection, but you know, the whole Q issue, Q, you know, where we are talking here with, you know, of course, we have also here our, you know, Donald Trump went out with the Bible and so on and so on. Q stands for 17. And Joseph was 17 when they sold him. And Yaakov was living 17 years in Egypt, you know, before he passed away with 147. So there is much more going on, you know, that the whole digging of, okay, what is with the son of Joseph? I mean, I just read to you, you know, this is here in a future time. It says here, Jeremiah, that Ephraim is the firstborn. He is the one who received the blessing. And this is like, since over 20 years now, people are distracting from this issue. They said, no, these are Jews.
But Ulf, I want to say something, that in Judaism, it's not, in Judaism, it's important that everything works, not so much who's at the top. And that's why the fight between Joseph and Yehuda eventually needed to be resolved. And that was really the main purpose of, when you see in the prophecy that everybody knows the story of Joseph and Yehuda, the fact that Vehem lo hikiruhu, they didn't recognize him. And as much as he helped them, they were always a little bit behind in what was happening. Even though a lot of the things they did was because like their fault and whatever. But the point is that the peace between Joseph and Yehuda and the two branches coming together and is really a symbol in Judaism, at least, of understanding on a very, very, very deep level of each other. Okay. And understanding the different roles that each of us have. Just like Joseph had a role to supply the world with 7 years of food, and Yehuda had a role to be the lion in front of the Jewish people, the children of Israel, the Jewish people, and build a temple. So, and just them coming together is them coming together is an act of unity that is of the world to come, of the Yemot HaMashiach. So hopefully, I mean, in simple words, that's what it is. It's about unity. It's about what, hopefully in the time of Mashiach, the Yosef and Yehuda will be one. In other words, they won't have to fight. They won't have to hide from each other. They won't have to be scared from each other. And the Jewish people will be one, you know? The children of Israel will be one.
Yes.
Yes.
I think you should see now this the screen I transmitted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is now the whole unity issue, and we are talking about this is now very extremely serious stuff. So we see here the 7th Congress of the leaders of the world and traditional religions.
Yep.
September 14, 15. So, and of course here you see, you know, left in the picture next to the Pope, you see here David Lau, and here Itzhak Yosef.
Yes.
Right? So the whole, regardless of what we talking about, Ephraim, Judah, so this unity issue and so on is currently portrayed in the world, and it's all under the Pope, all of them. And of course, they are extremely, you know, because the Roman Catholic Church, okay, they for them it's like very important, you know, to put their theology on top of the Jewish theology on Judaism.
Yes.
I mean, this is you know, it's like an add-on in there. Now, what I wanted to point this out with this, so number one, you know, this is exactly on the same day, you know, as I told you, when our guys are visiting the Western Wall together with Rabbi Feld, you know. So this is the same day. Yeah. So we have here two places to the right, you know, there is like this guy. So this is the Imam Azir. I have to take a look at this. But with this guy, okay, the Pope signed in Abu Dhabi this human fraternity, where the, you know, the World Jewish Congress says this is the most important document ever signed by the church, because it gives you complete freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of whatnot, and of course, you know, freedom of religion, but also freedom to act. Now, one of the biggest issue here, yeah, is of course, okay, now, where are we now in unity? So according to the Torah, now this is here the beast, the fourth king from Daniel 7. Yeah. So we have here the representatives from the Jewish people, and this is like it cannot be more official than that. It cannot be more official than that.
Okay? But I'll tell you, I want to comment on this situation because again.
No, I would, you know, what I'm seeing is, okay. So you have the Torah, the prophets, and the Psalms. So now I'm saying that the Pope already made a law that whoever shows up has to completely tell about his life exclusively from the prophets, from the Torah, from the prophets and the Psalms. So he has to show, you know, whoever comes, I mean, whoever is potentially a Moshiach, whoever shows up and says, you know, I mean, you know, I'm taking a look at Moshiach one-on-one, you know, whatever the Chabad says, he said, okay, you know, it has to be a righteous scion from David, you know, he has to, you know, dive into Torah, fight the wars of HaShem, and of course, you know, even if he does this, only when he built the temple, well, then we accept that he is a Moshiach. Huh?
Yes, 100%. Yes.
So now the biggest issue is, okay, now that the Jewish people say, yes, we wait for a Ben David. We are waiting for the son of David. So, and now the church says, okay, this was Jesus. And now we're in an issue. So for the last 2,000 years, you know, for the last 3,000 years, of course, you know, so after David passed, okay, now everybody waits on the Moshiach from David. So then Jesus comes. It was not accepted. So now we are 2,000 years later. Okay? Now, would you please understand, or not, would you please, it's perhaps wrong, could you imagine that the idea that the Ben Joseph is dying and then the Ben David is coming out to be the victorious Messiah, that this is the other way around? That the Ben David already died 2,000 years ago, and now the victorious Ben Joseph is coming in the form of Ephraim, the firstborn.
I don't know. I'm again, like I told you, at the end of the day, when it comes to prophecy, because it's not the Jewish law, we can't cut it and set it in stone. And honestly, you know, prophecy is, your guess is as good as mine, as they say, because, and that's why we spoke about the Jewish law of Mashiach and so on. But I want to say, let's we have to wrap it up because I gotta go. But we're a little bit overdraft, but okay. But I want to speak to this conference for a minute, and I wanna just share with you. When I was younger, I had a Sony camera with two eyes, 3D camera that I got, and I was I was called to video a choir that was singing. There was a singer there. It was a small event, maybe I don't know, 100 people, 200 people in Manhattan. Chabad event fundraising for some Chabad house or whatever. And the singer there hired me to video him, and so I videoed him, and we had a good time. And after the performance, we sat down and we ate something, and I started talking to him back and forth, trying to understand him. And he said something that shocked me, and I remember till today. I asked him, "Why are you a singer? Why did you get into this business?" He told me, "I love getting dressed up and going to events and eating good food. So if I could be a singer, I'll just be at these great events more." And the reason I was filming was because I needed some money, and I was doing it as a job. I wasn't there. I don't know. I wasn't there to peep on people. I don't know. So for me to hear that from him, I realized that there's a certain class of people that do things for reasons that are very, selfish. Or, I mean, I don't. He's a good boy, and at the end of the day, singing is not a big deal. But also, Nigel Farage speaks about the United Nations and how all the politicians that go there, they get, like, I don't know, $500,000 pocket money a year, and they get the best hotels, and they get the best food, and they just bribe them to death, so that anything that the United Nations says, they should just put a rubber stamp and they shouldn't ask any questions. So Nigel Farage felt that that was a little bit suspicious, and that his guard was down, and that's what happened with Brexit and the whole thing. Right now, it's not exactly clear if it was a good thing that they left or not, because now, when you're not part of the United Nations, goods from Britain are double taxed. Let's say
in Europe.
Yeah. So now you're not part of the community. You're part of like your own separate thing. So now shipping costs more, and taxes and security and going through everything. So it's very, very hard for the British people now, because now they're not part of the club, So I'm not sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll see. We'll see soon. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that these people coming to this group, to this meeting, the chief rabbi of Israel, all these people, I don't know why they're there. Maybe they're there for the good food. Maybe they like hanging out with people that are polished. Maybe they have like they have like the psychopaths or narcissists. They're just sick for power. One thing is for sure, people like me and you don't, and we're like leadership material in our communities. People like me and you don't understand what they're doing over there. There's no depth in what they're doing. Okay.
They're doing this is the whole drive for a one world religion, where all the differences are going away. We are believing only in one God. We are only belonging, and the Pope is the Antichrist. I mean, they built him up so that we know from Jeremiah 25, that even Israel, they had to serve Babylon. They had to serve Babylon for 70 years. There was no way out. Nowhere. Everybody had to serve Babylon. And the same thing happens in the last days. That means that all the world had to serve the Pope as legal successor of, Julius Caesar, Augustus, and Titus, of course, who destroyed the Jerusalem. So he's the legal successor. And they built him up to be the Antichrist until the real Moshiach comes and figures everything out. This is the whole issue.
Let's finish up, and then
Okay, sorry. So
we really need to wrap up. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
My take on this. Okay, everybody participated. We are the new world order. The new world order we are talking about. Okay, is in a way it's structured because the Pope always said that he represented Jesus. So the Jewish people over 1,700 years said no, it's not true. So at one point the Freemasons says, okay, we put him on top of our new structure. So in the moment the real deal is coming, the real Shiloh, the real Moshiach, well then the Pope is taken away, all the structure is going down, and then the transfer of power is going from the Vatican over to the to Jerusalem. And this is what we're seeing now. So the chief rabbis, well, they couldn't get out of this. It's totally impossible. You know, and the nobody is getting out of this. I mean, we are talking about now all the leaders from the World Jewish Congress, the leaders from the American Jewish Committee, here the rabbinical court from Germany, the rabbinical council. They're all going over to the Pope. They're all going.
Okay, so let's hope that there should be peace in the world, and let's hope that somehow this thing shouldn't, as you said, let's hope we can turn this ship around. And when I say this ship, I mean humanity and the world, into a place of serving HaShem properly, as it says in the Torah. If these guys are bored, they have some money, they want to make some conferences feel good and eat schnitzel, that's fine with me. Let's hope that they don't do more damage, and that the people that actually fear God and love God can have a part in building this world to be a better place.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, you ready to go? All right.
Yes.
All right.
It's been a pleasure as usual.
Very exciting, this episode. So I'm really looking forward, because I really want to get down to this with the Shiloh, with the Pope, with the chief rabbis, because I believe we are at the brink of that the whole thing is coming down and we are moving over to Israel.